Welcome to Off the Shelf, Conversations with Authors. I'm Martha Kofod. Our guest today is Ruth Berger. Ruth, thank you for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
I understand you are a psychic medium, and would you like to begin by telling us a little bit about the meaning of those words?
Well, as a psychic, I am a seer. So that means when I read for people as a psychic, I see things that they talk about. Very often I see their loved ones. The mediumship part is about the other side, people who have passed over. And so I very often see the person that they loved that is no longer present in the physical dimension, as well as spirit guides. And that's fascinating because when I do medical intuition, very often they are more helpful than what I know.
The spirits?
The loved ones who have passed on.
I see, all right. When did you get started with, when did you know that you had this
I really
gift or
didn't
talent?
know until my youngest child was 11. And I came home after work, and my other daughter, who is 4 years older than her, says, "You've got to see Penny doing what she's doing." I said, "What is she doing?" She said, "She's guessing all the Academy Awards correctly." Now, we didn't go to any of the movies. How did she know who was going to win and who wasn't? But every time she'd hear their names, she'd know who would win. So the very next morning, and she only missed once. In all the stuff, she only missed once. And that was the one movie she saw that she wanted that person to win. So she got prejudice. So the next day I went to work. And I was a electronics buyer at the time. And I said to my people at work, "How could she do that?" And the girl said, "That's called ESP." I said, "What is ESP?" And she says, "I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to give you a book to read, and you can ask me questions." And that was the beginning.
So was this person a type of psychic, or she
was actually someone who had been fascinated by the subject for some 20 years, and I didn't know that. And so I read the book. I couldn't read it fast enough. I'm a fast reader anyway, but I couldn't read it fast enough. It was so interesting to me because I'd never heard of ESP. And so here was this whole book on the subject. And from that, we went into going to her house regularly once a week to learn about the subject.
And is that person, was she an author as well?
No. At that point, she hadn't done anything. Years later, she created some kind of a tarot thing. I'm not into tarot. So she did tarot, and she got it created by a company. It was a board. It was a game.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay. And when did you first decide that you were going to write?
My book came out. I always wanted to write. In high school, that was my subject. I wanted to be a writer. But my first book didn't come out till 1970 because it took me 5 years to write it. And then to get it published was another thing.
And what book was that?
That book was called The Secret is in the Rainbow, and it's all about auras, how to see them, what the colors mean, everything about auras.
So after this introduction to the ESP, then you started cultivating this in yourself?
Well, due to her help, I cultivated it a lot, but I couldn't get enough. It was like somebody opened up a door inside of me, and I just wanted to know everything I could find out about the subject. So I began to read books, and I began to take other classes, and it was like it was insatiable. I just wanted to know more and more. And knowing more and more made me want to experiment. And so what I would do, like this one day I was in a department store, and I walked up to the sales clerk and I said, "Happy birthday." I don't know her. She looks at me strangely. "How did you know it was my birthday?" I said, "It was just a guess, a lucky guess." So that was the beginning of that.
And to what did you attribute that? Was it the aura or
no,
ESP?
I do psychic work on many levels. So I hear things, I see pictures about people, and I think I just looked at her and I knew it was her birthday. Probably, I don't remember exactly, but I think probably the word happy birthday was on her aura somewhere. Because I would do things like that.
That was your first book?
Right.
And then after that?
The second book was Medical Intuition. I have 3 children. The first 2 were born with birth defects, and they were pretty sick. I don't know if you know a lot about birth defects, but there's all the side effects that come from it. And so my husband was not a good provider, not this one, my first one. He was not a good provider, so in order to help my children, I had to learn to be aware of whatever was going on with them. So, because spending the money to go see a doctor was not in our budget, you know. And so I learned to observe everything about them, anything that I could tell. And my hand was wonderful, because if I touched them, I could tell exactly what temperature they were. And all kinds of stuff like that. So
you mentioned that the one child was 11 when she had this.
That was the youngest.
This experience, yes. So some time had passed then. And when you got into this and you studied it and you became a medical intuitive,
right.
What does that consist of, and how did you train for that?
Well, actually, my children trained me, you know, because it got to be kind of funny, because I could tell if the kid had whatever was going on with the child. I knew, because I read a lot of books by Lobsang Rampa. And Lobsang Rampa was a medical intuitive that had been taught in a Tibetan lamasery. And it fascinated me, because Tibet fascinates me. Why, I don't know. But anyway, so every time I read something he did, I experimented with it. So like what he used to do is he used to have people stand in front of a white sheet, and then he could x-ray them. I thought, okay. So I figured I'll try it. And I x-rayed my kids. And I could go down their bodies and I could find out where the problems were. I didn't know what I was doing, but it worked. And then I would know what to do with them.
The more current books, and I don't know that it's within the last 5 or 7 years, is the one that has an intriguing title, They Don't See What I See.
That's right.
Would you explain that?
Well, most people don't see. Most people feel. That's the first thing that happens. If you meet somebody for the first time, you're curious. You want to know who they are, what they are. So you'll feel something, and you may not even notice that you're feeling. But if it's a bad feeling, you'll notice. Okay? But if it's a good feeling, you'll want to know more. But you won't see. Most people don't see. But you'll feel. And from your feelings, you'll interpret it, the person. Mm-hmm. I, on the other hand, when I see, I've got a full scope. I know what's going on around you. I know a lot of information very quickly. Not that I'm like my one psychic friend, all she wants to know about is the person's sex life. I don't care about your sex life. You know, that's not what I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is knowing about you, not the other stuff.
Does this turn on for you for every person you meet?
Yes. The problem I have is since I got sick 3 years ago, my psychic ability has multiplied by 10. And so what happens now is it's hard for me to turn it off. And that's hard, because as nice as it is to know everything, I don't want to know everything. So if you've got a headache, I don't want to know it, because I'll probably get it. But stuff like that. So it's harder now.
But all of this intuition or information doesn't conflict with each other? You don't get cluttering?
If I'm in a large crowd and they're very noisy, I'll get clutter. But it's not because of what I'm thinking about them. It's because it's noisy. And the noise gets to me. Everything is accelerated in me now. So, the thing is, I see, I hear, I feel, I sense, and I see all over. So it helps me to know a lot.
All right, let's go through the series of senses then. The seeing.
The seeing I've already explained.
Is the aura.
Okay, the hearing. I hear what's going on in their lives. I hear what's going on in the person's mind. I hear what's, if they're worried about anything, if they're sick, if they're waiting for the doctor to give them a diagnosis. I hear all those thoughts. And what I'm not interested in is knowing a lot of gossip. I'm more interested in understanding the person.
And the feeling, do you do hands-on?
I don't have to.
All right.
Yeah, I feel a lot of things, and there are some things I do with hands-on, but very little. Mostly it's if my grandchildren are not feeling good, I want to know what's going on. So for them.
You make a distinction between gift and skill.
Mine has been trained. I have done a lot of training. I could have had 2 college degrees by now. I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of good mentors. And one of my mentors was a man that was in Tibet for a number of years and actually flew with that group of black Negro men that flew in the Air Force.
Oh, I don't recollect, so.
Tuskegee Airmen.
That's it, thank you.
Well, thank you.
He was one of my best mentors, and he would help me understand, because he studied in Tibet. He became a Tibetan Lama. And so that fascinated me because I was already caught up in that from
your early interest in the
Yes.
in the Tibetan.
And so he multiplied it because here I had the man there and how he worked. And what is great about seeing is when he would tell me about Tibet, I would actually go to Tibet in his mind and I would experience what he experienced. So there was another way to get the to
And
get
you met him
information.
how?
Pardon me?
How did you meet him?
Actually, I met him through an organization that I joined that was interested in the paranormal.
Okay.
And he was fascinated by it because he had been in Tibet. He knew a lot of things.
Does meditation have anything to do with
All of
your
it. Absolutely.
talent?
Meditation is very important because one of the problems of being a psychic, any person who is extra sensitive, they take on too much stuff. And if you don't meditate, you don't balance. And pretty soon you get really weird.
That answers my question about the clutter.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. What's the most frequent question that people ask you or that they seek answers to?
There's 3 main ones. Number 1, because of the economy, they're worried about their jobs. So am I going to get a new job? Am I going to get fired? Am I going to get a raise? Anything that has to do with work. Okay. The second most asked question is health, because of the fears that people have today, there's a lot of health problems. And the third question, which is my favorite, is love. Will I find my true love? Will the guy that I like proposed? You know, anything that has to do with love.
And you pull all this together from the aura and from
All the senses.
the intuition?
From all the
Yes.
senses.
Okay.
What I ask for when somebody asks me about someone else, I will say, give me that person's first name. When they give me that first name, now I've got that person, because there's 2 levels here. There's the person I'm talking to, but there's also what she's got on her thoughts. So if she tells me about this other person, just by the name, I actually see that person in her aura, and I can tell that person about him or her.
Is there a distinction between ghosts and spirits?
Yes. A ghost is an earthbound spirit, somebody that can't go on to the next level. Spirit is usually clean. They don't have leftovers.
And exorcising ghosts, do you
I've done a lot
deal
of it.
with that?
Done a lot of it, yeah. When my ex-husband died, he visited me more often than when we were married. I kept sending him to the light, which is go to heaven, get away from me. And the problem was he wouldn't go away. And it was because his second wife was calling him constantly and giving him guilt trips. Why did you die? Why this, that? Because
So he was a true ghost then. But did you see him as a ghost?
Yes, way too much.
So the distinction between ghosts and spirits is that you can see the ghost.
Well, the ghost is earthbound, the spirit is not.
Okay. So the spirit, you experience that how?
Same way.
Okay. But you don't see it.
I see everything. I don't care what I'm talking about, I see it. The ghost usually, a lot of times they don't have their full body. It might just be up to here. A spirit is always light colored, like white, like like somebody that's holy. But the ghost is not always a nice person. The ghost can be a murderer, can be anything.
When did you first see a ghost?
I think I must have been like 8 or 9 years old. These 2 men came out of my closet. I saw them fully, so I thought they were coming to hurt me, because why would they be in my closet? So I would scream and wake up my parents. And my father, who didn't know what was going on, who didn't see anything, would open the lights. Well, ghosts can't live in the lights. So what happens is when the lights are on, they disappear. So when he'd have the lights on, they'd go away. And this went on for a solid year. It was very painful for me and really painful for my parents.
Did they believe that was night terrors, or did they believe that you really saw a ghost?
They did not believe me at all. They thought I was just being very silly. Mm-hmm. And it was very embarrassing.
Your book, The 7 Steps to Communicating. How do you do that? Want to walk us through those 7 steps, or just making a...
Well,
No.
I can't tell you the whole book in 1 minute, but...
No, of course not.
The big thing is, first of all, the way I like to work with beginners is you find a picture of the one you want to make contact with. I don't care how they died, find the picture, preferably of just that person. And then you gaze at the picture and you pretend they're alive. As you look at the picture, you just pretend. And you say, okay, I want to ask you a question. Make it a question that can only be answered with a yes or no, so they can shake their heads, because you probably won't hear in the beginning. And you ask them a question, and then you shut up, because too many people go on and on. Just let them answer your question. And then when they've answered your question, if you feel good, then you'll know that that's the right answer. If you feel bad, it's not the right answer, and you might want to say goodbye.
Are you currently writing a new book?
Yes. I'm writing a new book on how to find your true love.
Tell us about that.
That's wonderful. You know, I've been divorced.
Yes.
And you don't get divorced because everything is great.
Of course not.
And all through the years, people have come to me about their love lives. And I want everybody to be happily in love like I am today with my second husband, and hopefully the last one. And because everything I've done, I got through meditation and all kinds of things to set up meeting him and to have our relationship be good. And so, you know, this 3-minute interview that people are doing today for singles, you meet
I'm not
somebody,
familiar with it, but yes.
yeah, you get 3 minutes to meet the new person and make a connection, and if it works, but that's all you get is 3 minutes. Well, that's what I learned how to do. So when I met him, and he was my hero, so I went to a singles party. It was in a home. And I cannot park a car. To this day, I am not a good parker, especially in parallel. Okay, maybe you can relate to that.
I can.
Okay. So anyway, I couldn't get the car to park right, and it's in Chicago, the party. The streets are not that wide, and my car is out in the road, and I can't get it to move right. So I rang the doorbell of the house party person, and I said, is there a man up there? Because this was when women didn't drive as much. Okay, is there a man up there who can park my car? And down comes this guy with this beard and a Hawaiian shirt. And he went over to my car. He said, I gave him the keys. I showed him where the car was. And he went right to the car, and within 2 minutes, he had it parked right. I had been playing with it for 15 minutes. He had it parked. And you know what impressed me? He did not tease me. I have 4 brothers. I know what it is to be teased.
Right. And did you, through your senses, did you see his aura?
All I knew...
Or you weren't interested in an aura at that point?
Oh, no, I always see
the physical
auras.
man.
No, the auras are first. But what I just liked him. I thought he was... And the fact that he didn't tease me was a big plus. And then the next day, he called me on the phone to ask if he could take me out to dinner. I said, how did you get my phone number? He says, I heard you give it to someone else, and I memorized it. Now, that to me was very impressive, that he could remember a phone number hearing it once.
So you found your true love.
Well, it really worked well.
That's good. Should people try to talk to their loved ones,
That's up to them.
or should they leave them in peace?
It's really up to them. Usually, when somebody wants to talk to them, they've been thinking a lot about that loved one, and something is going on. There's two reasons they come through. Number one is they want you to help them do something that they can't do because they're not physical. And number two, you need them. You need them for solace or whatever. So usually when you're thinking an awful lot about this person more than usual, that means they're trying to make the connection. And if that's the case and you don't feel uncomfortable, make the connection.
As an author, how did you go about getting a publisher?
I owned my own bookstore. It was the first metaphysical bookstore in Skokie. This is a long time ago. And I was working with all kinds of people who's promoted books. Mm-hmm. So I contacted the company and I said, can I send you a copy of my book and see if you want to publish it? That's how I did it.
Okay. And did the company provide the editor, or
Yeah.
did you select?
No, I didn't do any of that.
Okay.
And so they published the book. It took a long time, and they sold it. And then when I wrote my next book, I submitted that to the new buyer of the publishing company.
And the next book, the title was what?
Medical Intuition.
Oh, yes. Okay. And are you in demand as a medical intuitive?
Yeah, except since I got sick, my business, I've deliberately slowed down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And do medical personnel call you, or
Yes.
do the patients?
What happened is I just recently got a phone call from this person who's been going to somebody who works for doctors as a masseuse. And she says, I think you need to see Ruth because you need more help. So that was recently. In the past, the chiropractor that I was going to, his wife and he wanted to have a baby together. She'd had a baby with her first husband, but nothing was happening, and she'd had the thing they do to women to get pregnant.
In vitro?
In vitro 3 times, and nothing happened. And I said to her, the problem with the two, because I go to her husband as a chiropractor, and here she is, and I said, the problem is you eat the wrong foods and he doesn't. So when your sperm goes into him, or when his sperm goes into you, it explodes because it can't take your acid. And she said, that's what the doctor showed her on a slide. So after he changed his diet, because she wasn't about to become a goodie, so because she didn't like that stuff, he was good about switching because he wanted the child. And within the year, she was pregnant, and they had 2 children after that. Then he went back to eating what he liked.
Do any of your children have this
Yes,
talent?
My youngest daughter is very strongly this way.
She's, I'm just
The
understanding,
one who got the
psychiatric.
Academy Awards right.
Oh, oh, she's the psychiatric nurse.
No,
No,
my psychiatric nurse is the oldest one.
I see.
And she's pretty sensitive, but Penny sees everything I see. So she's the seer too.
In addition to your books that have been published, I understand that you write articles. Would you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, the latest one, I send it out on constant contact. Anybody who wants to get on my mailing list, they just have to go to my website and register, and they'll be on. The last article I wrote, I felt it was so important. There's too much anger and hate in our society, and it's penetrating people that don't even know. It's the kids. There's just, look at all the crime that's going on. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's more than ever. But look also at the people that are mad. I mean, I meet people all the time that are angry. And now what's going on with the politics, it's accelerated. And it's accelerating in people. And so what happens is we have a mass sickness going on, and it's called hate. And so the article that I wrote was how to get past that, how not to have that invade your presence. And so if you like a copy, I'll be glad to send it to you. And but I think it's an important subject.
I'll go to your website and register then, and that's ruthberger.com. All right, one last question. You speak of auras, and I understand that they come in all colors.
Right.
But not at the same time.
No.
Would you explain that?
Okay. The lighter the color is, like if it's white, that means that the energy is in a good place, because it's all about energy. The darker the color is, the more problems the person has. The next thing that I do is I look at the shoulders, and I look for which side is darkest. The left side usually means what's going on now. If it's darkest on the right side, it means it's coming from the past. Something is bothering you about the past. Something that isn't completed yet, or finished, or healed. So that's all of the different things that happen.
So that kind of ties into the quotation, I'm carrying these problems on my back.
I like that. I may use it.
You're welcome to it.
Thank you.
Well, Ruth, this has been very, very informative. And if you have another book that is about to be published, we wish you luck on it. And thank you for being our guest here today.
Thank you. Thank you.
And thank you for watching Off the Shelf. I'm Martha Kofod.